What if I told you that the thoughts you hold most sacred, the ones you believe are truly your own, have been shaped and programmed by words? For centuries, those in power have known a simple yet profound truth. If you control the language, you control the mind. Words aren't just sounds or symbols. They're energetic blueprints that construct your reality from the inside out. Since birth, language has been programming your perception, creating invisible boundaries that define what you believe is possible in your life. The architects of society have always understood that language isn't merely for communication. It's the raw material from which perception itself is built. The words flowing through your mind either create pathways to freedom and fulfillment, or trap you in cycles of limitation and struggle. Today, this hidden wisdom becomes yours. As this journey unfolds, you'll discover how the very language cycling through your consciousness is actively constructing the boundaries of your reality. Boundaries that will dissolve as you learn to recognize and reshape the words that create your world. Language isn't just a tool for communication. It's an intricate system of control with hidden meanings designed to shape your perception and keep you within invisible boundaries. Every word you speak and hear is subtly programming how you view yourself and your place in the world. Consider what you call the compensation for your labor, your salary. This seemingly neutral word carries a hidden history. It derives from sal, the Latin word for salt. In ancient times, salt was so valuable that Roman soldiers received it as payment. Today's salary continues this tradition in a new form, exchanging your most precious resource, your life, energy, and time, for currency. The language itself normalizes trading your irreplaceable hours for money without questioning if this exchange truly serves your highest purpose. Perhaps most revealing is the word mortgage, something millions strive for without examining its linguistic implications. Split this term and you discover its disturbing meaning. Mort, death, engage, pledge. Your home loan isn't just a financial arrangement. It's literally a death pledge that commits you to decades of payment, often binding you to jobs and locations you might otherwise outgrow. The language normalizes committing much of your life energy to this obligation while calling it an achievement. These aren't isolated examples. The entire linguistic landscape you navigate daily is filled with such hidden frameworks that shape your perception in ways you rarely notice. From education to media, advertising to casual conversation, you're immersed in language designed to maintain specific power structures and limit the range of possibilities you can imagine. Media outlets understand the power of framing. They know that describing economic changes as reforms rather than cuts dramatically alters public perception. They recognize that labeling a group as freedom fighters instead of extremists completely transforms how audiences respond to their actions. These aren't just semantic differences. They're reality-shaping tools that guide collective consciousness in specific directions. Notice how certain phrases become normalized through constant repetition. Expressions like "that's just how things work" or "be practical" aren't neutral statements. They're linguistic boundaries that discourage exploration beyond established paradigms. By accepting these phrases without question, you unknowingly consent to the limitations they impose. There's a phenomenon researchers call manufacturing consent, the process by which media and institutional language create the illusion of widespread agreement on issues where diverse perspectives actually exist. By controlling the terminology used to discuss topics, these systems effectively narrow the range of thoughts people believe are acceptable or possible. Breaking free from this linguistic control begins with awareness. Start noticing the words you encounter and use daily. Ask yourself, what assumptions are embedded in this language? What perspective does it privilege? What alternatives are being excluded by this framing? This simple practice creates space between you and the words that have been programming your perception. Develop the habit of linguistic substitution. When you encounter terms that seem to narrow perception, experiment with alternative words and notice how they shift your understanding. This practice reveals how malleable reality becomes when you change the language used to describe it. Create conscious distance between yourself and the words you encounter. Remember that language is a tool for describing reality, not reality itself. When you hear phrases like economic necessity or political reality, recognize these as constructed concepts rather than objective truths. This awareness allows you to form your own interpretations beyond prescribed linguistic boundaries. By reclaiming your linguistic sovereignty, you begin to break the spell that has limited your perception. You recognize that the boundaries that once seemed solid are actually transparent and permeable. Most importantly, you regain your power to shape your own experience through conscious linguistic choice, rather than unconscious linguistic programming. This journey toward linguistic freedom isn't just personal, it's part of a larger awakening. As more people become aware of how language shapes reality, collective consciousness itself begins to transform. New possibilities emerge, not just for individual lives, but for human society as a whole. The words you choose matter. They're literally creating the reality you'll experience tomorrow. The power of words isn't just philosophical or psychological. It's backed by fascinating scientific research that reveals how language physically shapes your brain, body, and even the world around you. Words physically shape your brain through neuroplasticity. Every phrase you encounter, whether heard, read, or thought, reinforces neural pathways. Studies show specific word choices literally change how your brain processes emotions, with some words triggering positive responses, while others deepen negative patterns. The language you're exposed to creates physical patterns in your neural architecture that form your emotional responses and entire worldview. Changing your language isn't just positive thinking, it's rewiring your brain. Neuroplasticity proves adults can reshape their minds through language. While childhood development is important, we retain the ability to rewrite our mental patterns at any age by changing the words we use. Quantum physics reveals that observation influences reality at its most fundamental level. In the famous double-slit experiment, particles changed behavior when observed. Consciousness itself affected physical matter. Apply this to language. Every word you speak is a form of observation directing energy into the quantum field around you. Your words create shifts in your reality with each phrase you utter. Dr. Masaru Emoto's experiments showed water exposed to positive words formed beautiful crystal structures when frozen, while negative words created chaotic patterns. Since your body is mostly water, imagine how words affect your physical cells. Plant research shows similar results. Those exposed to kind words grow faster and stronger than those hearing negative language. Words carry vibrational energy that influences living systems. This isn't just theory. Research shows people using positive language have better health outcomes, lower blood pressure, improved immunity, and reduced depression rates. Your body responds physically to the words you use. In quantum terms, words function as switches in a probability field. Simple shifts like changing "I have to" "I get to" potentially select different outcomes from the quantum field, one where opportunities flow rather than obligations weigh you down. To harness this power, begin by tracking your language patterns. Notice whether your words empower or limit you. For one day, record every limiting phrase you use. Then transform these patterns with expansive alternatives. Instead of "I can't afford this," try "How could I create resources for this?" These shifts create new neural pathways and select different quantum possibilities. In quantum physics, observation collapses the wave function from possibilities to specific states. Your affirmations work similarly. Saying "I am becoming successful" rather than "I will be successful someday" aligns you with that reality now, increasing its probability. Words affect your body chemistry too. Positive language triggers beneficial neurochemicals while reducing stress hormones. By choosing uplifting words, you're changing your biochemistry to support your goals. Start with one area of your life. Identify your typical language patterns about it, then craft new phrases aligned with your desired experience. Use them consistently for 21 days to establish new neural pathways. These aren't semantic games. They're powerful redirections of mental, emotional, and quantum energy. By changing your words, you're changing instructions to your subconscious and to the quantum field. This journey isn't about fear or restriction. It's about conscious creation, choosing words that expand possibilities and empower your spirit. Are you ready to step into your true power with words? The tools for consciously creating your desired reality through language are now in your hands. Use them wisely and watch your world transform in response. Beyond breaking free from linguistic control lies an even more empowering truth. You can actively create your reality through conscious language. This isn't metaphorical. It's quantum principles in action through your chosen words. Reality at its core isn't solid or fixed. Quantum physics shows it exists as probability fields until observation collapses these into specific experiences. Your words act as observation, directing energy toward which possibilities manifest in your life. Ancient wisdom recognized this long before modern science. Abracadabra likely comes from Aramaic meaning, I create as I speak. Many traditions teach that creation itself began with words, language as the primary creative force of reality. When you say, I am becoming successful, or I am attracting abundance, you're not just making statements, but issuing creative commands to the quantum field. You're directing your attention towards specific outcomes, increasing their manifestation probability. This transforms affirmations from wishful thinking into practical reality creation tools. The key is alignment. Your words must resonate with your deeper beliefs and emotions. Empty repetition without this alignment creates conflicting signals that weaken your creative power. Start with statements that feel authentic rather than aspirational. If I am wealthy creates resistance, begin with, I'm opening to new possibilities for abundance. These bridging phrases allow your consciousness to align with expanded realities without triggering resistance. Add emotional meaning to your words. When speaking statements of creation, feel the reality they describe. Emotion amplifies your words' influence in the quantum field. Saying, I am healthy and vital, while feeling that energy in your body creates powerful creative resonance. Your body provides feedback about word alignment. Notice which phrases create expansion, lightness, and energy. These align with your authentic power. Those producing contraction, heaviness, or discomfort are misaligned with your deeper truth. Speak in present tense about desired conditions. Quantum reality responds to the energy of now, not future intentions. I am becoming wealthy, rather than I will become wealthy. Places your focus in the present moment where creation occurs. Pay attention to your questions too. They direct quantum attention as powerfully as statements. Replace, why does this always happen to me, with, how am I creating greater freedom each day? Or what opportunities are appearing in my life now? This approach isn't about denying current circumstances, but directing energy toward preferred possibilities. You can acknowledge present conditions while activating language that creates new realities. This balanced awareness keeps you grounded while enabling transformation. The quantum field responds to both conscious declarations and habitual language patterns. Even casual phrases repeated throughout your day continuously influence your reality. This makes awareness of unconscious language habits essential. With practice, you'll notice synchronicities and shifts confirming this process works. Opportunities aligned with your declarations will appear, often unexpectedly. These manifestations start subtly but accelerate as your quantum alignment strengthens. The most powerful quantum language comes from sovereignty rather than need. Speaking from I am choosing to create rather than I need this to happen aligns you with universal creative flow. This sovereign stance activates your inherent power as a conscious creator. Through consistent practice, you'll discover you're not just describing reality, but actively participating in its creation. Your words become conscious tools for shaping experience, rather than unconscious reactions to circumstances. The ultimate empowerment of your inherent capacity to influence the quantum field through language. Understanding language's power is just the beginning. Here's how to transform this knowledge into daily practice. Conduct a language audit. For 1 week, record phrases you repeatedly use, especially during challenges. This reveals limiting patterns you've unconsciously repeated for years, like, I'm not good at this, or I can't afford it. These aren't just expressions, they're reality-creating instructions. Create conscious alternatives aligned with your desired experience. Transform, I'm not good at this, to, I'm developing new skills with practice. Replace, that's just my luck, with, I'm noticing how circumstances work in my favor. Start each day with a language ritual. Before engaging with external information, spend 5 minutes speaking declarations aligned with your highest vision. Speaking aloud creates stronger neural and energetic patterns than silent thought. Practice linguistic mindfulness throughout your day. When you catch disempowering language, simply pause, breathe, and choose alternative phrasing. This interrupts automatic patterns and establishes new neural pathways. Transform your questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What opportunity is this situation presenting?" Questions direct energy. Ensure yours point toward expansion rather than limitation. Build a personal empowerment lexicon. Identify words that energize you, like create, discover, transform, or flourish. Incorporate these into daily speech, replacing depleting terms with energizing alternatives. Maintain linguistic sovereignty in conversations. When others use limiting language, choose whether to adopt their framing or maintain your own. This subtle shift influences conversational energy without creating resistance. Set intentions before consuming media. Ask yourself, what perspective does this language privilege? What alternatives exist? This creates a buffer between external programming and your sovereign consciousness. Use as-if language one day weekly. Speak as if you're already experiencing your desired reality. This neurologically rehearses preferred experiences while directing quantum attention toward specific probability outcomes. Create environmental language anchors. Place empowering words in your physical space, on your desk, mirror, or phone. These visual cues reinforce conscious language patterns, especially during transitions. Practice gratitude language daily. Each evening, speak 3 specific appreciations. "I'm grateful for the creative insights that flowed to me today." Or, "I appreciate how my body supported me through today's activities." This directs attention toward abundance rather than scarcity. Remember that linguistic mastery isn't about perfection. It's about consistent awareness and redirection. You'll still encounter habitual patterns, especially during stress or fatigue. When this happens, simply notice without judgment and gently guide your language back toward conscious creation. As you implement these practices, you'll begin to experience tangible shifts, first in your emotional state, then in your perceptions, and ultimately in your external circumstances. The connection between your language and your reality will become increasingly evident as you develop greater linguistic sovereignty. This journey isn't about controlling every word or maintaining constant vigilance. It's about gradually shifting your linguistic center of gravity from unconscious programming to conscious creation. With consistent practice, empowering language becomes your natural default rather than an effort, flowing spontaneously from your awakened awareness of the creative power you've always possessed. While we focus primarily on personal language patterns, there's a broader dimension to consider: the collective power of shared language to shape our communal reality. The words we use together create the world we inhabit together. Throughout history, major social transformations have begun with linguistic shifts. Before physical changes occurred, language evolved to make new realities conceivable. The concepts of democracy, human rights, and environmental sustainability all had to be articulated and shared before they could manifest as social realities. The language preceded the transformation. Consider how rapidly terms like social media, artificial intelligence, or climate crisis have entered our collective vocabulary and subsequently shaped our shared experience. These weren't just labels applied to existing phenomena. They were linguistic frameworks that helped create and define new aspects of our reality. This understanding reveals both a responsibility and an opportunity. The language you choose doesn't just affect your personal experience. It contributes to the collective field of consciousness that shapes our shared world. When you speak with awareness and intention, you're not just transforming your reality, you're participating in the evolution of human consciousness itself. Social systems understand this power. That's why controlling acceptable terminology has always been central to maintaining existing power structures. When certain concepts lack widely accepted language, they remain difficult to discuss or address collectively. Conversely, when new terminology enters mainstream discourse, previously invisible realities become apparent and addressable. You can participate consciously in this collective linguistic evolution. When you encounter limiting terminology in social discourse, you can introduce alternative framing that expands rather than constrains possibilities. This isn't about imposing your perspective, but about enriching the linguistic ecosystem with more empowering options. For example, when discussion centers around fighting illness, you might introduce language of healing and restoration. When economic challenges are framed as scarcity, you can introduce concepts of redistribution and sufficiency. These subtle shifts don't deny difficulties, but reframe them in ways that open new avenues for solution and growth. Language creates bridges between individual consciousness and collective experience. The words we share form the architecture of our communal reality. By choosing language consciously, you help construct a world that reflects our highest potential rather than our deepest fears. This understanding transforms how you might approach conversations about important issues. Rather than arguing within existing linguistic frameworks, you can introduce new terminology that transcends polarized positions. This linguistic innovation often reveals solutions that weren't visible within previous conversational boundaries. There's a phenomenon sociologists call the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, the idea that the language available to a culture shapes what its members can perceive and conceive. Some concepts are literally unthinkable until language evolves to express them. By consciously evolving your language, you're expanding not just what you can experience, but what we collectively can imagine and create. This isn't about manipulating others through clever wordplay. It's about recognizing that the linguistic frameworks we share either limit or expand our collective potential. By choosing words that align with our highest vision for humanity, we participate in creating the conditions for that vision to manifest. As you develop greater linguistic sovereignty in your personal life, consider how you might contribute to our collective linguistic evolution. What terms might you introduce or emphasize that support human flourishing? What limiting terminology might you consciously replace with more expansive alternatives? Remember that linguistic evolution doesn't require everyone's immediate agreement. It begins with individuals who choose to speak differently, creating ripples that gradually transform the collective field. Throughout history, what once seemed like radical terminology eventually became common language as consciousness evolved to embrace new possibilities. Your words matter, not just for your personal reality, but for our shared world. Each time you choose language consciously, you're participating in the greatest creative act, the ongoing evolution of human consciousness through the power of words. As powerful as language is in shaping reality, there exists a dimension of consciousness that transcends words entirely. This is the final frontier in our exploration, the recognition that beyond all linguistic constructs lies a direct experience of reality that no words can fully capture. Every spiritual tradition points to this truth. The Tao Te Ching begins with the acknowledgement that the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Buddhist teachings speak of emptiness, not as nothingness, but as the spacious awareness beyond conceptual thinking. Mystics across cultures describe experiences of unity and wholeness that defy linguistic expression. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's a practical recognition that while language is a powerful tool for shaping experience, it ultimately exists within a larger field of consciousness that transcends all words and concepts. The map is not the territory. The menu is not the meal. You've likely had moments when you stepped beyond language, perhaps in deep meditation, during profound connection with nature, in the flow state of creative expression, or in moments of overwhelming love or beauty. In these experiences, reality is directly perceived rather than filtered through linguistic constructs. There's an immediacy and aliveness that words can only point toward but never fully contain. This transcendent awareness doesn't negate the power of language, it contextualizes it. Understanding that words are tools rather than absolute truth allows you to use them more consciously and effectively. You can employ language to shape experience while simultaneously recognizing the larger field of consciousness from which all words arise. Practices that cultivate nonverbal awareness can profoundly enhance your relationship with language. Meditation, mindful movement, time in nature, artistic expression, and deep listening all develop your capacity to experience reality directly, beyond conceptual filters. This direct perception provides a foundation of clarity from which you can then choose words more consciously. From this expanded awareness, you begin to use language differently. Rather than being unconsciously used by words, you employ them as creative tools with greater precision and intention. You recognize when language is serving your highest expression and when it's limiting your perception. You develop the capacity to shift between verbal and non-verbal modes of awareness, accessing each according to what the moment requires. This transcendent perspective also reveals how language can point beyond itself. Poetry, metaphor, and paradox can create openings in ordinary perception, gesturing toward realities that literal language cannot capture. When you understand the limitations of words, you can use them more artfully to evoke experiences beyond verbal description. The ultimate mastery of language isn't found in accumulating more words or concepts. It's discovered in the balance between verbal precision and wordless awareness, in knowing when to speak and when to rest in the silence from which all words arise. It's in recognizing language as a beautiful, powerful tool while not mistaking it for the reality it attempts to describe. As you continue this journey with language, remember that the goal isn't perfect linguistic control, but greater consciousness in how you use this extraordinary tool. The words you choose matter profoundly, yet beyond all words lies a direct experience of reality that is your birthright as a conscious being. In those moments when you step beyond language into direct perception, you touch the source from which all creative expression flows. From this spacious awareness, you can then return to language with greater clarity, precision, and creative power, using words not as unconscious habits, but as conscious choices in the ongoing creation of your experience. This dance between the verbal and the wordless, between expression and direct perception, is the highest art of conscious living. As you master this balance, language becomes not a limitation, but a vehicle for your deepest truth, a bridge between the ineffable reality of pure consciousness and the expressed reality of human experience. We've journeyed through the hidden power of language, from its role in shaping personal reality to its influence on collective consciousness, from practical applications to transcendent awareness. Now it's time to integrate these insights and consider how to move forward with this knowledge. The recognition that words shape reality isn't meant to create anxiety about every phrase you speak. It's an invitation to greater consciousness, to step into your power as a creator, rather than remaining a passive recipient of linguistic programming. This awareness develops gradually, becoming more natural with consistent practice. Begin where you are. You don't need to transform your entire linguistic pattern overnight. Start with awareness of your current language habits, then introduce conscious alternatives in specific areas of your life. Perhaps focus first on how you speak about yourself, then extend to how you describe your work, relationships, or health. This gradual approach creates sustainable change rather than overwhelming pressure. Remember that this journey isn't about achieving perfect linguistic purity. It's about developing greater choice in how you use this powerful tool. There will be times when habitual patterns reassert themselves, especially during stress or fatigue. When this happens, simply notice without judgment and gently redirect your language toward more empowering expressions. The most powerful changes often come from transforming your foundational phrases, the expressions you use repeatedly throughout your day. Identify these core patterns and create conscious alternatives that align with your highest vision. As these fundamental phrases shift, they create ripple effects throughout your entire linguistic ecosystem. Consider creating a personal practice schedule that incorporates different aspects of linguistic mastery. Perhaps dedicate Mondays to monitoring your internal dialogue, Tuesdays to transforming limiting questions, Wednesdays to practicing as-if language, and so on. This structured approach ensures you develop all dimensions of linguistic consciousness, rather than focusing exclusively on one aspect. Share this journey with others who are similarly interested in conscious language. Creating a small group for practice and feedback can accelerate your growth and provide support during challenging periods. However, be mindful not to impose your awareness on those who aren't receptive. Linguistic sovereignty includes respecting others' journeys with language. As you develop greater mastery, you'll likely experience synchronicities and manifestations that confirm the connection between your words and your reality. Document these experiences in a journal, creating a personal evidence base that strengthens your commitment during periods of doubt or regression. Remember that linguistic consciousness isn't separate from other aspects of personal development. It works synergistically with practices like meditation, visualization, physical wellness, and conscious relationship. As you integrate linguistic awareness with these complementary approaches, you create a holistic foundation for conscious living. The ultimate goal isn't to control reality through clever word choice. It's to align your language with your authentic truth, using words as vehicles for your deepest values and highest vision. This alignment creates coherence between your inner and outer worlds, allowing your unique expression to flow into manifestation with greater ease and grace. As you continue this journey, maintain a balance between focused intention and open receptivity. While conscious language helps shape specific outcomes, it also creates space for possibilities beyond your current imagination. The most profound manifestations often arrive in forms you couldn't have articulated in advance. Finally, remember that you're not alone in this awakening. Throughout the world, people are becoming increasingly aware of how language shapes reality. As this consciousness expands, we're collectively creating the conditions for new possibilities to emerge, not just in individual lives, but in our shared human experience. The words you speak today are creating the reality you'll experience tomorrow. Choose them with awareness, intention, and love. Your voice matters, not just as expression, but as creation. Use it wisely, and watch as your world transforms in response to the new linguistic patterns you establish. This isn't the end of your journey with language, it's a new beginning. From this moment forward, you have the opportunity to use words not as unconscious habits, but as conscious choices in the ongoing creation of your experience. The power has always been within you. Now that you recognize it, how will you use your words to create the life and world you truly desire?